Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisors, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand, the opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach?
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 5 years we've been asking the entrepreneurs of one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, and I'm the president of Franchise Interviews. And as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Jason Isley of Franchise Development for the 1-800-GOT-JUNK franchise opportunity. And 1-800-GOT-JUNK is the world's largest junk removal franchise with 200-plus franchise partners throughout the United States, Canada, and Australia. Hey, Jason, how you doing today? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much, Marty. Great to be here.
Oh, it's our pleasure, Jason. Thanks for coming on this show. Jason, we always like to ask our guests where you're calling from this morning.
I am calling in from beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia on the west coast of Canada.
Nice. How's the weather there today?
You know what? Clear blue skies, nice sun rising, and crisp, cold air. So it's a nice January day here.
That's fantastic. I do have an interesting background, Jason. What were you doing before joining the 1-800-GOT-JUNK?
Well, you know what? Not much. I've actually been with the company, just joined the company a little over 10 years ago, and before that I was a student. So this has been my career, my life, and franchising is essentially all I know.
That's fantastic. The company has an amazing history. Did you want to talk a little bit about that, the history of the organization? We've spoken about you guys on several occasions.
Yeah, you bet, and it's a fun story because our company came to be with from the mind of our founder and CEO Brian Scudamore, and for him, he started this company back when he was 18 years old. He was a student looking for a summer job at the time, and it was a tough job market, and needed to find a way to pay for college. So, oddly enough, he was sitting in a McDonald's drive-thru of all places when in front of him he saw a beat-up old pickup truck with plywood sides, and it said Mark's Hauling on the side, and he thought to himself, I can do that. That seems simple enough. So he had $1,000 in the bank, took $700 of it, and bought a pickup truck and spent the rest on brochures and business cards, and became everything we say we're not today, the man with truck that will haul junk type, and that was the beginning. So it was a start, paid for his way through school. However, ironically, what was supposed to pay for school led him to dropping out. He was actually finding he was learning more about business by running one than actually reading about it in a book, and was continually getting too many phone calls. So dropped out of school. His dad, who's one of the top liver transplant surgeons here in the city, obviously not too impressed his son was dropping out of college to become a junk man. But the business started to grow, and just year over year, it started to double in size to the point where he had $1 million business on his hand, and realized that he had something going, and the franchising began. So that was the beginning. It was a very humble beginning, but when you start that small, you're able to learn a lot, and obviously we're lucky to have him as a CEO, as he's a pretty sharp guy, and here we are today.
Yeah, it is. It's an amazing story, and we've mentioned it on several occasions. We even had, Jason, on the show, we were talking to Michael Gerber, who I know you know the name, and Michael Gerber was actually talking about the 1-800-GOT-JUNK opportunity. I know that the founder of your company was a big advocate also of the E-Myth, I guess.
Yes, that is a Bible within our organization, most certainly.
That's fantastic. So how has the show Hoarders impacted your business or your franchise? My wife is obsessed with this show, and we see you guys, it seems like every day, watching the old clips of Hoarders, which has become a very interesting show. A lot of people watch it, and you see your trucks all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's been a lot of fun for us, and we're very fortunate to be on that show because it does so much great things for our brand. I mean, the most obvious is just creating awareness, just continuing to get our brand in front of such an audience and our logo. I mean, you can't pay for that kind of advertising that we're receiving. True. So we're certainly grateful, but beyond just creating awareness, it actually drives a lot of interest towards our business opportunity. We receive a lot of phone calls of people saying, hey, I saw you on Hoarders. I realize you're not in my town. How do I get involved? So, that is something that we hope continues forever and something that we have a lot of fun with. I know that our franchise owners enjoy being on camera and being able to watch themselves on TV as well. So lots of great benefits for us from that.
Oh, absolutely. So how do you describe the 1-800-GOT-JUNK franchise opportunity to someone who's interested, Jason? Where do you begin?
If we're talking the opportunity itself as a franchise opportunity, I mean, this is more than junk hauling. For us, it's not just what we're actually providing as a service, but it's more about creating an experience and building a brand. And that's what gets us excited here. We want to be creating a household name. We want people to be saying, hey, you know what, I had some amazing service, and it was from all people. It was people that took my junk. So it's not about, do you know how to drive a truck? Do you know how to pick up garbage? It's more about, do you want to build something special? Do you want to build a brand within your community? Do you want to build something that people can relate to, that they enjoy experiencing? And that's sort of, the best way that I think I can describe it. It's not rocket science by any means. It's a pretty simple model, but you need to take pride in it, and you got to have a little fun as well.
Of course. Oh, absolutely. That's well said. So has technology played a role in this business, or is this fairly low technology, Jason, would you say?
No, actually, we are tech geeks, for that matter.
Really?
You think junk, you think a low-tech industry, but we've actually, we love technology. And so on a number of fronts, we've actually been written up in Wired magazine for the software that we've developed to run our business. We developed our own proprietary software called JunkNet, which is a platform that all of our franchise owners use to manage their business. It's the same platform that our call center uses to schedule the appointments. And because of it, we're able to communicate pretty effectively with all of our owners. They're able to understand what's happening in their business. And we're able to sort of dispatch information electronically, right from our head office out to the individual trucks, initially it was through SMS. Now, thankfully, to smartphones, it gets a little easier. So, we always like to be on the cutting edge of technology. On a marketing standpoint and brand building standpoint, we've partnered with Google on many accounts to sort of be one of their beta testers for a lot of the projects that they have. We have a very close relationship. So whether it be, pay-per-click campaigns or whether it be having a branded YouTube channel, we like to stay on the forefront. We like to be nimble, and we're not afraid to try new things. So, no, technology has played a huge role in our business right from day one, and it's something that we'll continue to do moving forward.
Wow, that's fantastic. Are there any numbers on the industry? I mean, as far as how big this industry is? I mean, I know you guys are in Canada.
Yeah, that's a fun question, and it's probably the toughest one for me to answer.
I can imagine,
because, there wasn't really an industry before we came along. There wasn't exactly the mindset of, oh, geez, I'll call a company to clean out my garage or to empty my basement. So it's one where it's tough to answer because we've sort of been creating it as we go along. And, we're doing system-wide sales of north of $100 million. We honestly believe that this can be $1 billion industry. We've just scratched the surface. We continually, conduct research to see what our awareness is throughout North America. And a lot of times it's, unaided awareness is under 10%. So not a lot of people still know about us, and yet we're still doing some great business so far. So we got a long ways to go. So tough question, but hopefully that gives you a bit of insight.
It does, absolutely. So what's been the most interesting thing that's happened to you since being with your organization, Jason? Is there anything that stands out? Or I'm sure you have a lot of interesting stories.
Yeah, I could go through countless tales of the unique items that we continually find at people's homes, whether it be, a warehouse full of mannequin heads to old freezers filled with sardines. I mean, the list goes on and on. I think for me, though, the most interesting thing that's happened to me personally is just the ability to meet such wide variety of people that are interested in joining the business. This is something where we have people from technology backgrounds, we have engineers that join our business from finance backgrounds, from sales backgrounds. I mean, all walks of life. And I think what's appealing, like I mentioned earlier, is that it's a simple model. You have trucks, you go pick up items, you provide great service, you build a brand, so anybody can get into it. And so I've met a lot of great people from wonderful backgrounds, and I think that's been my favorite part.
Yeah, and it's just what I've always loved about this particular model is, again, because I have studied you guys, it is a fairly simple model, It always reminded me a lot of like a Subway kind of story, starting the company for $1,000, and, Fred DeLuca was the same thing. What types of characteristics, then, do you look for in your franchisees since there's that diversity, Jason?
Yeah, great question. And for us, there's a few different things. I mean, when you talk skill sets, the big one is sales and marketing ability. Whether you have the experience or not, at least have the aptitude, because I think in any business, you need to be able to get out into your community and develop relationships. We always believe, especially for us, we don't have a retail storefront. You can't just flip open the open sign and hope people walk through the door. You really have to get out there and meet with people. So sales and marketing is a big skill set for us. I think, like I say, that can apply to most businesses. The other one is management skills, leadership ability. You have all these truck teams driving all over the city picking up all this junk. You need to be able to, find great people and be on top of them. Make sure that they're delivering that experience that you want them to your clients. So those are the soft skills. Beyond that, we want people that are going to be committed, on a full-time basis to running this business. We find that's the best way to create success, is if you're in it to win it, as they say. Absolutely. And then, just being appropriately capitalized. So nothing earth-shattering there. I think, like I mentioned, that can be applied to most business concepts, but those are the key elements that we look for in successful franchise owners.
Interesting. So how does the training work then for your new franchisees, Jason? What goes on there?
Yeah, this is something we put a big emphasis on. To us, it's all about building a foundation and getting the systems in place so that when you do launch your business, you can just focus on execution. So our training begins, we have a 2-month startup process where we have people put all the right systems in place, get everything implemented that they need to, and then they come to our head office here in Vancouver for a week of training where we literally teach everything that we know about 1-800-GOT-JUNK, everything from how to load a truck to how to hire an employee to how to manage your books. And so it's a pretty in-depth training program. After that, after 2 full months of working with us and a week of training, people are usually chomping at the bit to get going, and we're pretty excited to watch them grow. I think one of the things that I like about our organization is that it doesn't end there, though. We continue to work with our franchise partners very closely throughout the life of their franchise with business coaches and mentors because we want to ensure success. And I think that's led to a lot of the wins that we've had over the years.
That's interesting. So what's a typical day like as a franchisee, if there is such a thing as a typical day? Franchisee, imagine every day is kind of different, but
right. Good clarification. But if I was to sort of give you a semi-typical day, I think it would start with getting up in the morning, going online, looking at our software, and printing off the schedules for each one of your trucks for the day. Getting things ready for your teams. You would meet with your truck teams. Your employees would show up for the day, and you do your little pre-shift meeting. Let them know what they need to accomplish, what the goals are for the day. Is there any particular marketing that needs to take place? And then away your teams go. From there, our owners should be focused on growing their business. And so whether that be out there, whether it's going to a local networking breakfast at your Chamber of Commerce and meeting other business owners within the community, from there perhaps you go out and start knocking on some doors of realtors and doing a little bit of cold calling potentially and trying to find people that you can explain our service to. Maybe it's property managers or going out and talking with contractors. This is an opportunity where the harder you work, the more business you're going to have. And I think, that's always nice to be able to really impact your business directly. Maybe in the afternoon you have an interview set up, find a few more truck employees, get out there and do some of the marketing. And then by the time the day wraps up, you meet with your team, see how the day went, collect all the books for the day. And then maybe your evening is, doing a little bit of admin work at home, entering all the information from the day and logging everything that needs to be logged. If you're really keen, maybe you're hitting another networking event. Again, continuing to get out there and push your brand, create the buzz within that community of what it is that 1-800-GOT-JUNK has to offer.
Interesting. Where does the junk actually go then, Jason? I mean, what happens? So I know some of it probably gets recycled, some of it gets disposed of, some of it might get donated. Is that typically how it works?
Yeah, we take big pride in trying to divert as much as we can from the landfill, and it's a metric that we monitor very closely. Right now, our stats, we're diverting more than 70% of the items that we pick up away from the landfills. It's of wide variety, whether we can donate things to charities, perhaps we're taking things to scrap metal dealers or secondhand stores or Salvation Army or wherever we can find a place to take materials. It's in our best interest, not only from helping the environment and looking good within the community, but it increases profitability. It costs money to go to the landfill. So anytime we can find another method to do so, we're certainly encouraged that way. So, that's something that we want to continue to grow that number. Will we ever get it to 100%? Hey, never say never, but I think that might be a little bit tough.
Right.
But so far, I think we're doing a pretty good job of trying to be as green as possible.
That's great. So what advice would you give to our listeners? Most of them are, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. They know they want to buy a franchise, but they just don't know where to begin. And, you've been doing this for a while now. What would you say to them, Jason, in their quest to buy a franchise?
I would just say look around and really do your homework. Get out there and do the research. Talk to franchise owners, people that are in the business that you're looking at. That's something we always encourage. We don't want to hide anything. And there's going to be strengths and weaknesses to every brand, and you need to look at it and say, okay, do my strengths match up? Is this something that I'm going to be able to excel at? And then the biggest piece of advice I would say is be appropriately capitalized. Whatever the minimums are, have more. I think cash is always king in any business, and you set yourself up to win because you never know what's around the corner. We watched a few years ago with the market crash and the big recession, and that hurt a lot of people. So I think capital is such a big piece of it. And then the last thing I'll mention very quickly, I always think this is the best one, is that be prepared to work hard. You know, I think a lot of people think there's some get-rich-quick schemes out there and some great programs you can jump on and just invest and watch your money grow. Not the case. Entrepreneurship is probably the hardest thing anybody could ever do, but probably the most rewarding as well.
Yeah, well said. So what are your plans for the future? I mean, you guys are up to now, what is it, like 200 plus, and you're in, I guess, 3 different countries you're in. Was it Australia, United States, and, of course, Canada. What's next for you guys?
Well, I mean, we're going to continue to grow. And I mean, we still have openings in North America where we're looking for great people. We still have a couple of openings in Australia. And then in the coming years, we're going to start to look at, other countries, and we haven't really set aside which countries at this point. To us, it's more important to find the right person rather than trying to squeeze into a particular market. But something exciting that we are doing is we've just launched a second brand. And we've decided to leverage all of our knowledge, all of our know-how, our resources, and our infrastructure, and we're taking on a new service-based industry. So we have just started 1-888 WOW one-day painting. And we've been at it 10 months. We're up to 10 locations already, and we're expecting big things in 2012. And we just looked at it and said, hey, we have another fragmented industry that really doesn't have a true household name yet. So we thought, we're taking on the world of painting. We're going to up the standard in that world as well and see what we can accomplish. So that's what gets me out of bed in the morning right now and keeps me excited.
That's fantastic. We're going to have you back on the show and talk about that one as well, as that brand also continues to grow. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on becoming a franchisee, Jason? Any websites they should go to?
Yeah, you know what? 1-800-GOT-JUNK.com. And it's pretty self-explanatory from there, but we'll have a ton of information. Of course, you can always feel free to dial the 1-800-GOT-JUNK number, and they'll always direct you to the right place as well. But look forward to speaking with anybody that might be interested.
That's fantastic. I want to congratulate you guys on your success, Jason. Again, we've been following you guys a long time now and talking about you guys for a long time on the show. I think we've probably mentioned you on like 5 to 10 occasions already. So it was great that we finally had you on the show and got to speak to you. So be well, and we'd love to have you back on the show.
Excellent, and I would look forward to the opportunity. Thank you so much for the invite today. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much, Jason. Have a great day today. And we'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Franchise Interviews. For over 4 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get inside tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Check out our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisors, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And don't forget to listen to our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. And today's podcast is being brought to you by Diamond Financial Services. And if you're looking for a loan to finance your franchise, simply click the Diamond Financial Services logo below. Today's podcast you're going to get to hear from a legend in entrepreneurship and franchising, and that's Michael Gerber. And we've had Michael on the show 2 times up to this point, and the first time we had him on the show, Don and I were amazed at the amount of emails we received and listeners, and it was really overwhelming and incredibly fun at the same time. One of the questions that we commonly ask on every show is, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? And naturally, Michael's response was brilliant. So here we go.
Entrepreneurship? Yeah, well, I think before that, Mike, I think a lot of people listening might be a little surprised that your mom still tells you what to do.
No, that's the problem. My mom never told me what to do. She inspires me to do things that I never thought about doing.
Absolutely. That's great. That's tremendous. Yeah. What advice would you give to a prospective franchisee looking to buy a franchise, Michael?
Well, first of all, understand what you want. It has less to do with the franchise than it does with you. What is it truly important to you to do? This whole new emergence of the dreaming room, for example, really revolves around the idea that struck me that this is the age of the new entrepreneur. And the new entrepreneur is very, very much different than the one who preceded him. The new entrepreneur is more interested in a business that has meaning, not just money. So the whole question for the new entrepreneur or the one who wants to buy a franchise is really, so what's the meaning of this? What's the impact of this on the world? When we begin to look at the world and really realize that the world is in dreadful shape, you wonder then how I, in a business of my own, could have some kind of impact that would add value to the world. So I begin to look at franchises from that perspective. What's the value of the franchise? Presuming that I'm going to be successful, what is the value? What do I deliver that has value to my customer? What pride do I get from what it is I'm doing? What am I adding of benefit to the world as opposed to subtracting from the world, presuming, again, I'm going to be successful? So the first thing is, what does this company mean? What is the true meaning of this? And what's the impact and import of it? For me in my life, I'm going to die one day, and I'm going to probably die inside my business. And what I'd like to ask myself is, will I be proud of the fact that I devoted the rest of my life to doing this? Right. Would I want to say this to people I love? Would I want to say this to my kids? What am I going to say to them when I describe what I've chosen to do with the years of my life that I'm going to do it in? Because, in fact, you're going to spend the rest of your life in this business or in something very much like it. The second thing I would ask, once I've decided that, yes, this is a worthy thing to do for me, a human being, how organized is this thing that I'm going to do? How organized is it? Does it have a truly kick-ass breakthrough system for doing what it needs to do, which is attract people to it as customers, which is convert those people into active customers and paying customers, and ability to convert those customers into clients, meaning they come back again and again and again and again. So I want to build or buy that capability, or I'm going to then need to build it for myself.
Wow. It's
a great. We've been asking that question now since we started the show, Michael. We never got such a great response.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so really, don't jump into anything quickly. Do your due diligence, and that's a good point. I mean, this might be something you've been doing for a long time. Are you going to be proud of telling people this is what you do?
Proud, yeah.
I mean, Marty, you and I have talked about. People just can't jump into something that sounds great. They got to
exactly
they have to go more deeply into their own motivation.
Right.
And that's the thing that's missing almost all the time. Essentially, the prospective franchisee, the guy, the woman who decides they want to buy a business opportunity, essentially they go out there, and the one who pitches the deal the best gets the deal. And I'm essentially saying it's got to turn around the other way. The one who's going out becomes more thoughtful about what I'm looking for, as opposed to simply going out and looking for a good business to run.
Right, absolutely.
So that right there might be a strong characteristic of a successful.
Those were very deep words from Michael. Is talking about the whole, what is this franchise going to mean? How do I want to be remembered? So, again, it's going very deep into that question, but again, it's one of the best responses I think we've had up to this point. And again, it is Michael Gerber. He's sold millions of copies. His latest book is Awakening the Entrepreneur Within, and we had Michael on the show several months ago, and we spoke about.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 10 years now, we've been asking the Franchpreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with Nick Friedman, the founder and president of College Hunks Hauling Junk and Moving Franchise Opportunity. And College Hunks Hauling Junk is the fastest growing junk hauling and moving franchise in America. Hi, Nick. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing great, Marty. Thanks so much for having me.
It's my pleasure, Nick. I feel like I know you, because I've been following your franchise for such a long time now, and I think it's such an amazing story. We always like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning, Nick?
I'm in Tampa, Florida, sunny Tampa, Florida, which is the home of our franchise headquarters and national call center that books all the appointments for our franchise owners.
Oh, fantastic. Is it hot down there today, Nick?
It's hot and muggy, and then it rains about midway through the afternoon every day. It's kind of typical Florida summer.
It is. That's fantastic. I was saying earlier, Nick, this is, it's a great story. When we're talking about College Hunks Hauling and Junk, you could really go back to, the beginning, and your friendship that you had with Omar. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the history of College Hunks Hauling and Junk.
Yeah, absolutely. So my business partner and I actually went to high school together. We met in the 10th grade, actually in detention of all places. And we were always brought up to kind of follow the traditional career path. You got to get good grades, you got to get into college, you got to get a degree and get a job. And so we did manage to get into college. And the summer before our senior year of college, we were back home for summer vacation. And Omar's mom had this beat-up cargo van from her small furniture store. And she told Omar and I that summer, why don't you guys go do something with this? So we were sitting around the living room table just trying to come up with ways to make the phone ring. And we said, hey, well, what about College Hunks Hauling Junk? And we all just kind of busted out laughing at first. And then we kind of looked at each other and said, that's got kind of a catchy ring to it. So we put it on computer printout flyers and put it around the mailboxes that summer. And people had a need for the service. They thought the name was catchy. So that's kind of how the original idea was born. And then obviously a significant amount of events have taken place since then. We went back to school our senior year of college and wrote a business plan and won first prize out of about 150 entries. So it gave us a little more confidence in the idea. And then when we graduated from college, we got corporate jobs felt pretty unfulfilled with it and said, you know what, let's make this a full-time gig. So we've been doing that ever since.
That's fantastic. How do you typically describe College Hunks Hauling and Junk franchise to a prospective franchisee, Nick? Like if you were at a franchise show, and someone came up to your booth, I'm sure you get the question a lot. How do you typically respond?
Sure. So basically at the surface level, we provide trucks and we provide labor to homeowners and businesses that need stuff moved, either need stuff hauled away to be properly recycled, donated, or disposed of, or to be actually packed up and moved, across town or across state. So basically at the surface level, we are a moving and junk removal service. But beneath the layers, we describe ourselves as a very purpose-driven, values-based, and socially conscious organization. So we're not just moving people's stuff, but we're moving people's lives. We're making a positive impact in the lives that we touch. We're building leaders in the young men and women who we hire, the college folks that are doing the heavy lifting. So our franchise owners are very much like the professors or the coaches. There's a mentorship component to the people that they're bringing on board. And then we're very socially engaged in terms of we actually donate 2 healthy meals to Feeding Children Everywhere organization for every completed move or junk haul. So what that does is it really creates a level of community engagement, franchise owner engagement, and then employee engagement and loyalty that allows the business to really stand apart. So it's a bright and colorful brand. It's a catchy, quirky name. It's bright colors. But behind that is really a service experience that creates a level of loyalty in the community for our franchise owners. So that's really how we would describe it to a prospective franchisee.
It's a fantastic service, too, Nick. I mean, it's very important. I mean, from what I understand, too, I mean, it's been a while since we've moved to Pennsylvania. It's been about 12 years now. But, it's a very stressful situation, isn't it, when someone's moving, isn't it? I know it's like in the top, isn't it, like as far as stressful situations?
It is. So moving is actually number 3 next to death and divorce as one of the most stressful life events. And so we have a very lofty opportunity to remove that stress from the people that are moving.
Right.
And in many cases, where somebody's moving, there's also, in some cases, of death or divorce involved, or maybe a downsizing situation. And so, there's a great opportunity there. Also, clutter and junk that piles up in people's homes that we also remove. That's been shown to create anxiety and stress with the homeowners or the businesses. So you see the relief on people's faces when your team clears out their garage. Now they can park the car in the garage again. So, I mentioned at the beginning, when we just started with a beat-up cargo van, we now have over 100 franchises around the country. And it's really amazing to see the impact that it's had for our communities, our clients, our franchise owners, and our team members.
We had Michael Gerber on our show 3 times in over 10 years, Nick, and I know has he been an influence on your franchise and your life as well?
Absolutely. So when we first started the business, we were doing all the work ourselves. We were making all the typical mistakes that an entrepreneur makes, and so we were driving the truck, we were answering the phones, we were hauling the junk. We had the 800 number routed to our cell phones, so people would call the 800 number to complain about erratic driving, and I'd be the one in the driver's seat, answering the phone on the other end, apologizing, saying, we don't condone that type of driving in our company. We'll tell those guys to be safe on the road. So we started burning out, and one of our mentors recommended Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth Revisited.
Yeah.
We read the book, and it was like a lightning bolt hit us. We needed to start working on the business, not in the business. We needed to start creating systems and processes so we could have a second truck, let alone one day a second location. And that was really the framework and foundation for us to be able to franchise our business.
Right.
And actually, we had the opportunity to meet Michael Gerber at a Inc. magazine conference a few years later. And made a connection there, and actually he authored the foreword for the book that Omar and I co-authored, called Effortless Entrepreneur. So we were able to get our sort of inspirational mentor to even write the foreword for our book. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, he's been a huge influence, obviously on the franchise industry, small business as a whole, but certainly on our business. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for having read his book.
That's fantastic. It's amazing how often we've heard that story on our show in over a decade, Nick. And I think actually this week, I think it's his 81st birthday. I'm pretty sure it's this week. I have it somewhere in my calendar. But he's amazing, isn't he? I mean, he's an amazing man. I just really admire him. And just the impact that he's had on franchising in general. I mean, particularly with College Hunks Hauling and Junk. So I think that's fantastic. How has technology played a role in your business today, Nick? I mean, like in the beginning, it was probably very basic, as you were talking about. What role does technology play today in the franchise?
Technology is actually a competitive advantage of ours currently. We've developed a proprietary software that makes it easier for the client to schedule their appointment. They actually can, almost like an Uber-type feature, see where the trucks are and route to their home and gives them some convenience and transparency elements to it. We have an awesome routing and metrics program within that. But you're right. When we started, it was a notebook paper and ultimately, eventually, an Excel spreadsheet. But we were, and actually when we started, social media didn't even really exist. So you didn't have to worry about, the client engagement, or you didn't have to be as concerned about online reviews. But now we've tried to weave in and leverage the advantages that technology gives everybody today, which is, connectivity and which is convenience and access and access to information. So that's really the way we've tried to leverage it, and we've been able to leverage it to our advantage in the recent years. And we're going to continue to make that a key driver for our business, so that we can separate ourselves from maybe the independent movers and junk haulers that might get started out there, or even our competitors in the franchise space.
That's terrific. You've had a number of accolades over the years too, Nick. I mean, it's a whole list. To give all of them would be impossible. But I know you've been voted the fastest growing company. You were in Inc. magazine. Entrepreneur magazine frequently has you as like the franchise opportunities in their publication. What is that all attributed to? It seems like there's a culture too. At college, Hunks, hauling, and junk. In studying the business model, would you say?
Yes, absolutely. So culture is critical to any organization, and we've been able to, I think, develop a really world-class organization that is, creates a lot of vibrancy within it. And ultimately, if you can develop a great culture internally as an organization, your team members and employees are going to be happy. They're going to be delivering a positive experience for the actual end user, the customer. And I think that's been kind of the critical piece to some of the different accolades that we received. There's a little bit of buzz behind the story and magic behind the name and the color scheme, but because we can back it up with actual, employee experience and customer experience, I think that's what's created some of the media attention, some of the TV appearances and news articles that have taken place over the years. There was another book we read early on called The Purple Cow by Seth Godin. And he talks about if you're driving down a country road and you see a field of brown cows, you keep driving because you've seen that before. But if there's a purple cow, you're going to pull over and you're going to take pictures of it. You're going to put it on social media. You're going to tell your friends and neighbors about it. And so really what that means, he's saying you got to be remarkable. You got to figure out a way to stand out. So obviously with a name like College Hunks, Hauling, Junk, and the colors, the bright orange and green, the brand itself sizzles, but we've got to have some stake within that, and we believe our stake is the company culture, our core values, our company purpose. That gets people, motivated to want to make our vision a reality, and not just come in and, for the junk haulers or the movers, just move people's stuff, or for our call center agents, just answer the phone. We want people to be passionate about what they're doing. So I think those are the things that have set us apart in an industry, quite frankly, where anybody could grab a truck and put a logo on it. So we've got to really do some intentional things to set ourselves apart. I think that's what's been the key.
Street, Nick, one of the pieces of advice we've been giving to our listeners over the last decade is, to look towards the industry. This is a pretty big industry, right? I don't know what the numbers are, but are there any numbers as far as how big the industry actually is?
It is. So we've done some studies and found that the local moving and junk removal industry combined is approximately 11 to 12 billion with a B,
That's
billion
incredible.
dollars. And, so there's a lot of market share out there. There's really no major 800-pound gorilla that owns a big chunk of it, which is it's I think a fragmented industry that does have a lot of mediocre service expectations and service delivery. So that makes it ripe for opportunity. If you can provide a consistent brand experience, a consistent service experience, you're going to create that loyalty. And I always emphasize what I call the 3 R's: repeat business, referral business, and reputation online. And if you can really capture and master the loyalty from the community with those 3 R's, the business is going to grow and flourish, and you're going to capture market share. So we don't think we've even scratched the surface yet as a brand in the markets that we do service, but we do think there's a huge opportunity for us to do so in this industry.
One of the questions we like to ask someone like yourself when we have you on the show, Nick, is, what's been, and it's a tough question, one of the most interesting things that's happened to you since launching the business? I mean, I'm sure you have 100 stories, so to narrow it down to one is probably pretty tough, but does anything stand out, since you've launched it?
One of the most memorable moments was actually we appeared on the very first episode of the very first season of Shark Tank on ABC.
Yes, I saw that.
And this was shortly after the recession, so we were still kind of grinding our way through it. We had maybe 5 or 6 franchises in our system, and the recession in the housing market had crashed, and so we were worried if we were going to be able to make it through. And we had seen an ad in Inc. magazine looking for people to pitch pitch businesses for a TV show, and so we went on there, and we were actually at the time trying to figure out ways to diversify our income stream. So we were pitching a sister company. We were going to call it College Foxes Packing Boxes. And it was just an idea at the time, kind of silly, and in reality it never ended up working. But one of the sharks, Robert, made us an investment. He wanted equity in College Hunks as his collateral, and we made the hard decision to actually turn down that offer. And we didn't know what to expect going into the show because we had never seen it before. But what an experience to look back on, and certainly memorable. It reruns every now and again on CNBC on their reruns, and so that was certainly stands out in my mind as one of those sort of like wow moments of business ownership, where we were on national TV, and it's a show now that's been become hugely popular.
Right.
Sort of, I think, made entrepreneurship kind of at the forefront of pop culture. Yes. So that certainly stands out for me as one of those sort of unique and memorable moments in our business's history.
What the majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. What types of characteristics do you look for in your franchisees?
What I like to say is there's 4 F's when considering a franchise, which is also, I guess, starts with a letter F. So, there's 4 F's that come out of franchise. And I think this is what a prospective franchise should think of when they're considering what franchise they want to pursue. And this is, quite frankly, I think what franchisors should consider when they're evaluating a prospective franchisee. So the first F is fit. Do they fit? In other words, do they have transferable skills that can make them effective at this business? Have they done anything in their prior professional or personal lives that would make them be successful in this type of business? The second piece is the family side. In other words, does their family support them in them pursuing this endeavor, whether it's their husband or wife or kids or parents? Do they believe in them? Because you don't want things to get tough in their inner circle to say, I told you so. You want them to kind of cheer them on to get through it. The financial piece is important. In other words, are they capitalized to be able to invest in the opportunity, and do they have realistic financial expectations? And then the last F is the fun factor. Can we have fun working with this individual? Franchising is very much like a partnership, even though that's not typically called that. You got to have, an alignment of vision and values to be able to enjoy working together. So that's really what we look for. We want people that believe in the secret sauce that we've already developed. We don't want somebody to come tell us that they think it should be done differently. We want them to tell us that they believe in what we've created. And sure, we would, want to continuously improve and encourage ideas, but we want folks that believe in the system and are going to execute the system rather than trying to shortcut success by doing it their own way. And I think that's, really no different in our system than any other franchise model that is going to be successful long term. They need to really take into account those factors.
That's great, Nick. We have this great quotes in franchising podcast. Anytime we hear, Michael Gerber's been in there a couple of times, but we're going to put that one in there because I haven't heard that in over a decade, and I think that's great advice to our listeners. It's really fantastic because it's true. I mean, you could really, your business, you could teach to anybody, couldn't you? I mean, pretty much, but it's interesting in putting those factors in there, like family support, and even fun. I haven't heard that, but it should be an enjoyable business. And, because it is a stressful situation for the customers, I guess you got to be able to put a smile on your customer's face, don't you?
Absolutely. And I mean, as you know, there's over 3,000 franchise opportunities out there. So, what's going to separate one from the other? It's got to be something that you can enjoy. And I guess I'll grab another F out of there. I'm on a roll here. Fulfillment. Is it something that we're going to be fulfilled doing day in and day out? Because I think franchising is a lot like a gym membership. If you join a gym, you've got fitness goals. you're getting access to all types of equipment, personal trainers, coaches, workout groups, but you still got to go and show up and do the work. So if you buy a franchise, you're getting access to the business model in a box. You're getting access to trainers, coaches, fellow franchisees that you can, hold each other accountable with, but you still got to show up and put in the effort to execute that business model. So that's where I think those factors come into play.
Once you decide that, you do like them, and they like you, Nick, and there is a fit, what is the training like? I mean, do they typically come to Florida for training? How does that work?
Yes. So we do a week-long training at our headquarters in Tampa, and it's very interactive and hands-on and engaging. And it's really a train-the-trainer type model because I would say majority, if not all of our franchise owners, we never want them to really ever step foot on the truck. They're working on the business from day one, not in it. So we want them to have the mindset of I'm hiring the college guys to do the heavy lifting. I'm training these guys to be great representatives of my brand when they show up into people's houses to move their stuff. So that's really the way our training is focused on is training our franchisees to be mentors and coaches and leaders that develop a team within their market to go and provide a great experience for the customer. So the week-long training, we start with just kind of an introduction to the brand and the culture, and then we go into the technical things like hiring and training, marketing and sales, the technical aspect of teaching their guys how to load and move items, and the IT side of the business and our call center and how they interact with that component of the business as well. So it's a week-long in-house, and then we actually provide field training within the first 3 months. We send out a ramp-up coach, we call them, to spend 2 or 3 days with our new franchise owners to make sure their sales and marketing is tuned in properly, to make sure they're executing the model that they learned at training. And, of course, we do ongoing coaching calls, webinars. We do an annual conference. We do other field visits throughout the year. So it really never training never stops. It's an ongoing process. It's not an event.
That's so important. You and Omar are working more on the business instead of in the business, but you know what a typical day is like because you were doing it for a long time, Nick. How would you describe a typical day for a college Hunks hauling and junk franchisee?
So a typical franchisee is going to be sort of like I said, the head coach or the general manager of their team. So they're going to get up in the morning, they're going to go to the office, they're going to print out the job sheets for that day, meet their crew that morning and give them their assignments for the day. So they'll give them the keys, they'll give them the clipboard, and they'll give them the job sheets. So the team will go out to do their work, and the franchise owner is then going to be, checking in with the team throughout the day, but really going out try to build more relationships with real estate agents, property managers, assisted living facilities, channel partners that could use our service on a regular basis. So that's kind of the activities that we want our franchise owners doing is networking and building relationships. It's not a sales role because you're not selling something they need today, but it's really sort of a relationship building role. And, again, they might spend an hour during the day recruiting and hiring more team members to make sure they keep the bench deep and keep a field of A players that they can train and send out to be the movers and haulers. So really I would say hiring and training and coaching is one key hat that the franchise owner wears, and then networking and relationship building in the community is probably the other key hat that the franchise owner wears, and that's what a typical day might look like, is sending the crew off to do their work and then going out and building those relationships or recruiting more team members to continue to grow with the business.
That's terrific. I know you and Omar do a lot of, planning, and looking towards, the future of the franchise. What are College Hunks hauling and Junk's plans for the future, Nick? I mean, where do you see the organization maybe 3 to 5 years down the road?
Sure. Great question. So, we expect to actually have more growth here in the next 3 years than we did in the first 12. And really that's a testament to our team and to our franchise owners that we have in the system. So we've got about 100 franchisees currently. We should have 200 within the next 3 years. And our system-wide revenue, currently is hovering around $80 million for this year, or should be around $80 million for this year, which will translate to an average of per franchise of close to $1 million in top-line sales. The majority of our franchise owners might own 2 or 3 zones. So we really want to drive our per unit revenue up to $1 million per zone. That's where we think we can get it from an organic growth perspective. So, that's really just the focus, is continuing to invest in brand development, continuing to invest in converting the leads that come through and maximizing the service delivery. That's our vision. We don't want to get distracted with new shiny objects. We want to stay focused and continue to execute to maximize the opportunity of the model that we have in front of us.
That's terrific. You must get the question a lot too. It's interesting because there's a story behind it too, Nick. And I'm sure you get the question a lot. Of working with Omar because he was your friend before all of this actually happened. What's that experience like? I mean, working with a good friend.
It is a blessing, a true blessing that we've been best friends since high school. And business partners for over a decade. And so I've known him for almost a little over 20 years.
Wow.
From time to time, we're told that we bicker like an old married couple, but that's because we've been with this business for so long. I think the key for any partnership has been that our vision and our values have always been in alignment, and we've always been able to communicate that to each other in a way where even if we disagree on a tactic or a strategy here or there, we're able to communicate enough to get back and just get back to focus and get back to the vision and the path that we're on. So it's been a lot of fun to be able to have that journey with somebody who started out as a friend. I know a lot of times you hear horror stories about family and friends that, kind of break up due to the business stresses that take place of entrepreneurship. But we've been, I guess, some of the lucky ones to be able to navigate through it. But I really do credit the vision and values being in alignment and the fact that we communicate so openly and trust each other so openly that, we've never had a breakdown in those key pillars of the relationship.
What's the best way for our listeners, Nick, to get more information on becoming a franchisee or even the service in general for College Hunks Hauling and Junk? I mean, is there any website that you'd like them to go to?
Absolutely. So we have all of our information on collegehunksfranchise.com. That's collegehunksfranchise.com. And, we've got some great reports that help illustrate the industry and the opportunity behind this business model. So would love for the listeners to come check us out.
That's fantastic. I really enjoyed having you on the show, Nick. As I said, I've been following you, so I feel like I know you a bit, and following your franchise, so it's a privilege and an honor for me to finally have you on the show. And, I'd love to have you guys back as you continue to grow because I think you have a wonderful franchise opportunity.
Absolutely. Marty, thanks for what you're doing for the franchise industry and appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure, Nick, and we'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Hi, this is Connie McDermott, Administrative Assistant for Franchise Interviews, LLC, and you're listening to Franchise Interviews.
Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 9 years we've been asking the entrepreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with John Ferricutty, the Chief Operating Officer of Been There, Done That. And Been There, Done That has been in the dumpster rental industry since 2004. Hi, John. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Marty. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me today.
The pleasure is mine, John. We would like to ask our guests where you're calling from this morning, John.
I'm here in beautiful Toronto, Ontario, and we're in the west end of the city here, and it's a lovely day, and I'm looking forward to the interview.
That's fantastic. I always have friends that go up to Canada this time of year, John. I always understand, the weather's they always say it's almost perfect this time of year up in Canada.
It's beautiful. It's if you've never been up and visited with us, I think you'd be surprised at the beautiful summers that we have here. And, I would invite anybody to come up and experience Toronto.
That's fantastic. You have a great background, too, John. I was impressed, for a number of different reasons. One, it looked like you have a background in franchising, of course. I understand that you were a franchisee at one point. Maybe, you could talk a little bit about yourself and your franchise career.
Sure, I'd love to. I'm going to go right back to my first job out of college was with Xerox, and I was a sales and marketing representative with Xerox, and I bring that up because I think really that that was where I learned the importance in business of communication and customer service. And if there's one thing that I know, it doesn't matter what business you're in, people do business with people they like, and I really feel like that's where it started for me. From there, I got into small business. I did a whole bunch of different things. I got into property management. I managed some commercial mixed-use properties here in Toronto for about 10 years. While I was doing that, my career in small business and in franchising started kind of at the same time. I opened a couple of bar and restaurants with partners, and I also became the first Canadian franchise operator for another concept. If you don't mind me saying it was called the Handle with Care Packaging Store, and I did that in 1993. Okay. And that was where I was introduced to franchising. And, it was, for me, I always had an entrepreneurial mind, and I wanted to be in business, but I applied my sales and marketing background that I had learned at Xerox and in the property management business, and I found that by taking some pretty straightforward sales and marketing strategies, I was able to have some real good success with my franchise business, and kind of came on the radar of the franchisor at that time, and they started to use me on the support side to go out and speak to other franchise operators about sales and marketing, and that's when I was introduced to the franchisor side of business. And to make a long story short, I ended up selling my franchise so that I could concentrate 100% on training and working with the other franchise operators on the support side. I also got into doing some franchise development for that company, which was lots of fun. And that was when I sort of moved from one side of the franchise industry desk as a franchisee to the other side as a franchisor. And I still look back on my experience as a franchisee and small business owner every day when I go to work now that I'm on the franchisor side, if you would. So, and in 2007, I met Mike Kernigan and Mark Crossett from Been There, Dump That, and started to work here for this company in February of 2008, and just having a wonderful, wonderful time.
That's fantastic. I mean, it must be great for you too, John, that you have that empathy for the franchisee, and that can't always be said, on our show. We've done almost 500 interviews up to this point, and I imagine that all that experience, even going back to Xerox, it certainly helps you, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, every day when I come in, I'm constantly thinking of that franchisee perspective because that's my history. Right. And and I think that for the most part, it really serves me well in the role that I'm in because, let's face it, every franchise network is a team, and all the members of the team have to contribute equally, and there's a lot more franchise operators on our team than there are people on the franchisor side. So, the strength of us, really, frankly, in any franchise organization is the franchise operator.
That's great. What do you like most about franchising, John? I mean, the majority of our listeners, we call them aspiring franchipreneurs. It seems like most of them have it in their mind that they want to get into franchising. What was it that you liked most about franchising?
It's I just mentioned it's the whole idea of working as part of a team, and you could be the greatest small business owner in the world and have great success locally, but when you have other people who are like-minded, who have similar goals, who are also working in their market to achieve the same things that you are, then your efforts are just increased exponentially, right? And so for me, I believe the ability to follow a proven model by a group of people all trying to aspire to the same thing is just tremendously strong.
Sure. That's great. Been There, Dump That is one of those, in doing, again, almost 500 shows, John, this was one of the concepts when I was studying. I said, God, why didn't I think of that? It's just, it's so clever, for so many different reasons. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the story of Been There, Dump That, how it got started, and all that other good stuff.
Sure, I'd love to. The idea and the company itself was started by a good friend of mine now. His name is Mark Crossett. He was working as a general contractor doing residential remodeling and renovation jobs. So he was doing kitchens, bathrooms, basements, stuff like that. And one of the big challenges he found in that business was that when he called a dumpster company and had to get rid of the debris, it was just a big hassle. You know, they would oftentimes not show up on time, and then when they did, it was a big old triaxle truck that was belching diesel exhaust up the street, and very large, rusted out dumpsters. It was just not a nice experience. It was difficult. So he had this idea: why don't we make this a much easier, nicer, more friendly experience?
Right.
And he came up with the idea: smaller trucks, smaller dumpsters. Make sure everything looks good, make sure the driver's polite and in a uniform, and all the, seems to be simple stuff, but stuff that really isn't done very well in our industry. So he started, and very quickly his dumpster business that he named Been There, Dump That, started to take up an awful lot more time than his contracting business. So he just started doing that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
Then one day,
the name is very clever, by the way. I was going to say, John, you have to give him a lot of credit for the name too. I'm sure you get a lot of positive comments on the name. I just think it's so clever from a marketing perspective. I said, God, that's brilliant.
Well, thank you for saying that, and you're right. I mean, it's amazing how many people you introduce yourself and you give the name, and they just either smile or even sometimes they just will chuckle. They get it. It's funny, and it's memorable too. So, and Mark Crossett was the guy that came up with that name. But
that's great.
Then what happened was there was a flood at a company, the home office of a company called Weedman Lawn Care, and you'll know that Weedman Lawn Care is a very successful franchise company in North America in the lawn care. So, anyways, they had a flood in the basement, and they had to clean out some carpet and drywall and all that kind of stuff, and this dumpster showed up and said, Been There, Dump That on the side, and that's how Mark Crossett was introduced to Mike Kernigan. And Mike, his background is entirely in franchising and specifically with Weedman Lawn Care. And so in getting to know each other, they started talking about business. Mike always had his eyes out looking for, new concepts and ideas. And that's how Been There, Dump That was born as a franchisor. And so just a chance meeting where, and you know what, people do business with people they like. And that's basically how that happened. So, and that was, they started franchising in 2004. So between 2004 and the sort of middle to end part of 2007, they added some franchises slowly. But they really needed somebody to come on board and take the reins. Mark was still working as a franchisee and continues to this day to work as a franchisee. And so, they brought me on in the beginning part of 2008, specifically because they needed somebody to take the reins specifically for this brand. And I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, and so I started in 2008. Now, at the time, we're part of a family of franchise companies that all fall under the umbrella of a company called That Franchise Group, and they include companies like Weedman Lawn Care, us. We're the Canadian master franchise for some other U.S. franchise companies. So there's actually 6 companies underneath the umbrella. They're all in the sort of home services business, so they're related in that way. And it works really well because we can share common practices and marketing ideas and all that kind of stuff between the companies, and that works really well.
Fantastic. And I was going to say too, you've done a very good job too, John. I've understand that Been There, Done That has officially reached, I think you're over 100 units at this point, which is really, it's a milestone in franchising, isn't it? Not a lot of franchise companies actually reach that 100-point mark, do they?
They don't, Marty. I'm so proud of this because we, this is a very unofficial statistic, but I've spoken with a number of people at the IFA who have all told me that the statistic is that less than 20% of all franchisors reach 100 units. And so for us to do that, we're very, very proud of it. But I have to tell you, it was a goal. And we took Been There, Done That, and entered the United States with it in 2011. And we're very proud of us being a small Canadian company to enter the United States without the benefit of a master in the U.S. or really any financing that we had to go get. We financed the whole thing internally here using the proceeds of the Canadian business, and we now have. I'm very happy to tell you we have many more U.S. franchise locations than we do Canadian, and I say that without upsetting the Canadians, because we understand that the difference is so much bigger down in the U.S.
Of course, that's fantastic. Did Mike know initially, John, that it seems like franchising is such a good fit for Been There, Done That, because it seems like the concept can be duplicated anywhere, and it seems very not to oversimplify it, but it seems like it's a very simple process, isn't it?
I say it all the time. It's a very simple business model, but it's certainly not easy, And no small business is easy. And we occupy a little niche in the trash hauling industry in North America. I mean, this is a massive industry, $45 billion in sales a year in trash hauling. And so we only need our little piece, and the little piece that we occupy is what we call the residential friendly dumpsters. So we 95% of everything that you'll see that we do is at someone's home, typically in a driveway. But we are able to put bins on the street if we need to. But we work with homeowners and contractors who are working for a homeowner. So anyone who's doing a home project. So things like kitchens, bathroom renovation or remodeling, if you need a new roof, if you're doing some work outside, even if you're just ripping out your back deck or cleaning out your garage and you need to get rid of waste. And that's what we do.
It's so clever, John. We had, in our neighborhood, we had one of those big, dumpsters. It just seemed like it was there forever. And it just seems like the neighbors start to resent it after a while because it's so big and it's so bulky and it's rusty and it just doesn't look nice, does it? And that's what it was the spark for me when I was reading about Been There, Done That. I mean, it's so clean, it's nice and colorful. You guys have that nice green color, and there's so many great aspects about it. And I guess, that's what Mike was that was his niche, wasn't it?
That was absolutely it. And, it was, and you're right. If you put one of our dumpsters in your driveway in your neighborhood, your neighbors are going to look at it, and instead of grumbling, when are they going to get rid of that ugly thing, they're going to chuckle because you're right. It's going to be freshly painted. By the way, part of our business model is that the dumpsters get refurbished on a regular basis so that they're good, they look nice. We protect the driveway with a very unique and proprietary method of protecting the driveway, so the dumpster itself never even touches the driveway. We deliver with a small and agile vehicle that's kind of looks like a tow truck, so we can get in and out of tight spaces, and the truck does not look out of place in a residential setting. And then, probably the best part about it is our drivers are uniformed. They are able to communicate. They, they're polite and they have manners and they understand customer service because, if I didn't tell you already, I believe strongly that people do business with people they like.
Sure, absolutely. And it's the communication aspect is being, very professional and things of that nature. I think that's such an important part of the business. And the bins come in different sizes too, don't they, John? I was thinking of, this whole thing from a repeat repeat sale, type of situation where I imagine that, you, with this type of model, you would have a higher repeat sale. I was thinking more of like a spring cleaning type of situation, where, it can almost become like an annual thing for a lot of your residential customers, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually really funny you say that, because that was a piece of the business that I really didn't expect, and that we've found over the years that this was like a nice little added bonus to what we found, is that a lot of homeowners are actually using our dumpsters as a regular part of their home maintenance spring cleaning. And we thought that a homeowner would call us once and then we may not hear from them again for years, but that's not the case at all. And in fact, what a lot of people do is we found is that they'll split the cost with a couple of neighbors. And so like three neighbors will get together, and this year I get it in my driveway, and next year you get it in your driveway, and then every spring we split the cost, and it turns out to be a regular part of our spring cleaning stuff. And that's a neat part of the business. And you get to know people too, and a lot of our business is with people that we work with all the time. So you're absolutely right. And then and then another lot of our business is done with contractors who are working at people's homes. And the contractors love us because they know exactly what they're getting when they call us. We answer the phone. We deliver on time. Sometimes, more importantly, we pick up on time. Can you imagine a homeowner does a kitchen renovation and it's Friday and the renovation's been done for a few days, and they're they want to have their friends and family over for a dinner party, let's say, to show off their brand new kitchen, and they can't get the dumpster company to pick up that ugly old rust bucket out of the driveway. So they know that they can call us, and typically within an hour or two we can have that thing picked up. And not only we pick it up, but we'll sweep the driveway for them to make sure that it's nice and clean when we leave.
That's fantastic. It's so important. Maybe we could talk a little bit about, franchising, John. I mean, who does, this particular business model attract? I mean, who is your, I guess you could say your ideal franchisee?
That's a great question. We look for people with a generic business background, and they seem to be the people that are attracted to us. We've got, we got lawyers in the system, we got engineers in the system, we got, you name it. What we don't have is a lot of people that come out of the waste disposal industry. Which is interesting. Yeah. But people with customer service background like it. We do have a number of engineers in our system and that have had good success, and I believe that's due to the fact that engineers like systems, and ours is a very specific. So we have systems for all the different aspects of the business, whether it be operations, marketing support, all that kind of stuff. We're a systems company, so. When we get a new franchise operator into our network, a lot of people who are attracted to that systems idea like what we have to show them, because it's very straightforward. It is a little bit unique, especially in our industry, but systems is, I think, what is very important too.
That's fantastic. This Been There, Done That has gotten some, pretty good, I guess you could say, public relations, too. I mean, there was one show on cable, wasn't there, John, that actually featured Been There, Done That?
There's actually a number of them. So we've worked with a number of the very popular, cable TV shows that deal with home rentals and stuff. So I might be doing a little name dropping here, but first we worked with Mike Holmes and the Homes on Homes show. We did that for almost 10 years, and that was a wonderful relationship. And we've also worked. We work with the Property Brothers, and the Property Brothers has been a fantastic relationship for us, and we continue to work with them. We work with another TV show called Listed Sisters. And anyways, it's been wonderful for us because it allows us to donate our services, and rather than I don't know if they're going to love us saying this, but it's more about product placement than it is buying advertising. So and we fit so well with our concept and our business model, the way we do things for these television shows, because our bin, our logo, and everything looks good on the television, and they can count on us to give them great service. So, yeah. And we've done that in markets all over North America.
Yeah, I think those shows help the industry too, don't they, John? I think it helps create awareness, for the industry. I think that it's very clever. I know I've become aware, of your industry just by watching some of these shows. I say, God, why don't we do that? It makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And people love those shows. They're very popular.
They're very interesting, aren't they? They are fantastic. How would you describe a typical day for our listeners, John? People, they're listening and saying, "Wow, this sounds like a great concept." What is a typical day like as a franchisee for Been There, Done That?
Yeah, so you might think a typical day for a franchisee might be, driving around in a truck, but that's really not the case. We look for people that don't want to be driving the truck, to be honest, because we want them to be working on the business, right? Not in the business, the old cliche. But we do want them to start for the first little while inside the truck so that they understand exactly how that operation side works, and they do. We like to see our franchise operator move out of the vehicle and into the operation of the business. Usually at around the 3-month mark, to be honest. So really fairly quickly after starting. So a typical day for a franchise operator would start in the morning with some operational kind of things like dispatching, scheduling pickups and deliveries, and all that sort of thing. But then it would quickly move into allowing the office manager or inside salesperson to take that stuff on, and then getting into what we really see as the important aspect of being a franchise operator in our system, and that's building the relationships out there in the community that turn into business. It's meeting and getting to know the contractors in your area. It's becoming active in the local contractors association. We're very active members of the National Association of the Remodeling Industry. We're very active there. We always coach and work with our franchise operators to get involved in the local Chamber of Commerce and become active. And those are the things that turn into business. And although it may not happen overnight, if you're good at that kind of thing and you're persistent at it and you're consistent with it, it always turns into relationships that turn into business. And so a franchise operator would spend a good chunk of their day doing that. Now, that's not to say that they wouldn't hop in and answer the phone and talk to customers during the day as well, because that happens for sure. And, in fact, you also have to be ready if somebody calls in sick to hop in a truck and make some deliveries that day if you have to. So it's, I find that our franchise operators love the ability to be interacting with people all day long. And they love what I call the simplicity of our business model. And again, no small business is easy. You know that, But when you have a good model and you're following the model, it does make it a little bit easier.
What about the office type of situation, John? I mean, do the majority of your franchisees have, do they rent an office, or is it something that they can work from a home office? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, the majority of our franchise operators start out of a home office while they're building their business, and that's really an advantage for us. I mean, it's an inexpensive investment to get going because you can start out of your home. We really recommend that once they get to the 2-truck level in their business, then it's time to be on the lookout into moving into an office, because by the time you get to 3 trucks, then you really have to be in an office. If that makes sense.
Of course, right.
Sure
it does.
You can wear a lot of hats as a small business owner when you're small, but as you grow, if you continue to try to wear all those same hats, it's going to stunt your growth. And you really have to start bringing on office management and people that you can delegate to and move into an office and all that. And that's how we plan it out with our franchise operators. So we like to see them in an office usually by the end of the first year, beginning of the second year. Now, that said, we also have some franchise operators that have made the commitment to renting office space right out of the gate as they're opening, and that works really well too. So you can do it either way.
great. What happens to a lot of the, I guess you could say the junk, John? I mean, does any of it get recycled, or does it go to a landfill? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah. That's a really good question, and we get it all the time. So anything that can be recycled is typically recycled. So when we go dump, when we dump whatever load we have, 99% of the time it's dumped at a facility that will separate and recycle the recyclable.
Oh, that's great.
And we're pretty. I mean, we know how important that is. I mean, it's 2016. Sure. You can't just fill landfills anymore. So right. We work with companies. Now we don't do it ourselves. We dump at third party. But we always make sure that there's the ability to recycle when we can. And so wood gets separated, and drywall gets separated, and metals get separated, and all that stuff. And then typically when we do leave a load, very little of it actually ends up in a landfill.
That's fantastic. You've been involved in franchising for a long time now, John. And one of the questions we'll like to ask people like yourself when we have someone like you on the show is, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Because we find from doing the show such a long time now that a lot of them are really confused because there seems to be so much out there today. I mean, there's opportunities here in the U.S., there's opportunities in Canada, and even other franchise opportunities international. So it gets a little bit overwhelming. So, I mean, from everything you know up to this point, what advice would you give to our listeners in their quest to buy a franchise? Yeah, you're right. Especially now with the Internet, you can get overwhelmed. Search franchising on Google. Here's my experience. First of all, I would say look for a franchisor that wants to give you as much information as possible. Because in order to make an educated decision, you have to educate yourself. And so I would say, the best franchisors are the ones that want to give you as much information as possible. They're not trying to hide anything. They're open. You want the open book franchisor. So that's the first thing. I would say try to match your personality with the business. I mean, if you're the kind of person that gets up early in the morning and goes to bed at 9 o'clock at night, you don't want to be in the restaurant bar business. If you want to be in a home service type business, do you want to be dealing with a lot of employees? And if you do, retail would be great for you. But if that's not something you want to do, then look for a type of business that doesn't require a lot of employees. So, I mean, it sounds simple, but it sometimes people lose sight of that. So find a business that matches your personality, and then, do your due diligence. Don't fluff over any of it. And I find that the most important thing you can do is talk to franchise operators in the system. Yeah. You really got to get on the phone, and email's not good enough. Marty, everybody relies on email these days. Get on the telephone and talk to these people, really, because you'll hear it in their voice whether they are enjoying what they're doing or not. Don't you agree? Exactly. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's the best form of communication. Still, it's old school, isn't it, John? But I still think that's still the most effective. Absolutely. And then the last thing is, once you make your decision and you get into the system, I'm gonna quote my good buddy Greg Yon, and Greg is our director of franchise support here, and he and I were franchisees years and years ago together, and I actually stole him over to work for us. But he says it all the time. It's the basic blocking and tackling. Follow the model, especially in the first year. Invest in something you believe in, and then follow the model, and you'll have success. And again, it sounds simple, but it's sometimes people lose track of that. It works. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, you've had this milestone, John. I mean, you've hit the 100 franchise unit mark, and so, I mean, what's the vision then for Been There, Done That? I mean, where do you see, the company maybe 3 to 5 years down the road? Yeah, we see ourselves. Our goal is 200 to 250 units across North America. We've mapped out Canada and the United States, and we know we can do it. But we don't plan on biting off more than we can chew, though. So we have a model that calls for sustained and controlled growth. So
we don't want to, support is so important in franchising, Marty. You got to have the people to help the new franchise operators, and if you grow too fast, sometimes you can outgrow your support team. So we want to make sure we grow at a good rate, that we can work and help support our franchise operators to be successful, and in so doing, our validation and our franchise with our existing franchise operators will continue to be positive, and so that's our goal. 200 to 250 units, but that's probably in the next 10 years, to be honest with you.
That's great. I mean, it's it's nice that it's going to be that kind of growth. As you said, I always wonder, John, how sometimes some of these, the big franchisors where you got 36,000 franchises, how difficult it must be to support all of those different franchisees. It must be quite difficult, isn't it? Again, you probably know better than I do because you've been in franchising, such a long time now. But that's a little bit overwhelming, isn't it, when you're dealing with that many franchisees?
Well, it is. I mean, I've never been involved in a franchisor that's that large, so so it's hard for me to relate to that. But I'll tell you, I relate again from the franchisee side. When I was a franchisee, if I wanted to talk to my franchise support rep, I wanted to be able to pick up the phone and actually speak to somebody.
Of course.
And so
absolutely.
that's sort of how we base everything. So it's grow aggressively, but grow under control and do it right. And, we're going to try to continue to do that. And I think if we're successful at doing that, we're going to be successful at growing this business and continuing to do what we've been doing for the last few years.
That's terrific. What's the best way, John, for our listeners to get more information on Been There, Done That? Is the website the best place to go to? I mean, the website is fantastic, by the way. There's a lot of great information.
Well, thank you.
Is that the best place to go to?
I would say, yeah. I mean, go to BeenThereDumpThat.com or BeenThereDumpThatFranchise.com. And you can find out so much information. Now, I will tell you, we're in a little bit of the middle of a redesign on the website. We're just making it a little prettier, Marty, and you have to do that once in a while just to keep things up to date. But yes, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful opportunity for me to talk about the business.
Yeah, I've enjoyed talking to you, John. I think this is a wonderful concept. I was very excited to talk to you today because, as I said, I said, God, why didn't I think of that? I mean, it's just so clever and brilliant, So, I expect great things for Been There, Done That. I'm going to keep following you, and I'd like to invite you back, in the near future as you continue to grow. I think this is terrific.
I'd love to be able to do that. And thanks again. Have a great day, Marty.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 7 years now, we've been asking the entrepreneurs of one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show today. We're meeting with the CEO of Junkluggers, Josh Cohen. And since 2004, the Junkluggers has been offering an environmentally friendly alternative to traditional junk removal. Hey, Josh, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Marty, thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, Josh. We'd like to ask our guests where you're calling from this morning, Josh.
New York City.
That's fantastic. Of course, one of my favorite places. I was born in New York, and so I don't even have to ask you how the weather is there today because I'm in Pennsylvania. We're about 70 miles west of the city, so that's fantastic. This is, when I was reading about your story, Josh, I was fascinated for many different reasons, but, maybe you could talk or describe the history of Junkluggers.
Yeah, sure. So the whole thing started in 2004 using my mom's Dodge Durango. And I got the idea while I was studying abroad in Australia. A friend said he made $100 hauling away a neighbor's refrigerator, and I thought that was a great idea. Right. I was only making, I think, minimum wage at my internship that I had planned for that summer. So went home, printed out some homemade flyers on my parents' computer, and just started going around town handing them out.
It is. It's fantastic. Did your education help you, in coming up with this whole concept as well, Josh, while you were studying abroad?
I'd like to say yes. I think my parents would really like me to say yes.
Sure, of course.
And I think it gave some good foundation. I went to business school, but I really do believe most of the learning was, kind of on the ground as we went.
That's fantastic. And, of course, being, your mom was a part of that whole thing in the beginning, too, It's always, we love these stories, having these,
these kind of stories on the show, so it's very interesting. Maybe you could talk a little bit about Junkluggers as, a franchise. Like if you were at a franchise show, Josh, and someone came up to your booth and they said, okay, so what do you guys do? How do you typically respond to the question?
Yeah, I mean, in general, junk removal, it's a service that everyone needs at some point in their life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, rather than dealing with the daunting, kind of backbreaking task of removing generally bulky, heavy, unwanted things like sofas or construction debris, people would rather just pay us to take care of all the work for them. And so that's what we do when we provide a extremely customer-friendly and customer-centric approach to it from the time they give us a call all the way until we sweep up when the job's complete.
That's fantastic. And you guys do it a little different, too, because, there's a lot involved in donating a lot of the items, I guess, to, like, charities. How does that work, Josh?
Yeah, so that's a huge part of our business. In general, our company mission is to keep as many items out of the landfills through donating and recycling. And we have this big, hairy, audacious goal of having 0% end up in landfills by 2020.
Wow.
So one of the main ways we do that is by taking a lot of these things that we haul away that are generally, still in decent enough shape for someone to use, and we donate them to local charities and donation centers.
That's fantastic. I think that's great. It's a fantastic goal, that of course you've set for the company. So I think that's great. How do you use technology in your business, or is technology even used in this type of business, Josh?
Definitely. I'm 31, and I started the business when I was 21, so I guess I feel like I grew up in the technology era in a way, and I saw the benefits of it. So, we've developed our own customized cloud-based software management system. Okay. We also have an app that our guys in the field can use, and basically it's a way to manage all of the daily operations and scheduling and reporting and do it in an efficient and real-time way.
That's fantastic. You're in a pretty big industry too, Josh. You're right. At some point, everyone has to remove junk, from their home. And my wife and I were recently talking the other day saying that, I think we're ready for that. We've been in our home now for 9 years. So, the market is pretty big. Are there any numbers as far as how big your industry is? It seems like, to me, this industry gets bigger every year. My hunch is that there's growth in this industry.
We've been growing steadily for the past 10 years. Even through the recession, we continued to grow. And I think that's because, people are getting a stronger awareness that this type of industry and service is out there.
That's true.
And also there's just unlimited potential because everyone, business or personal, they have stuff that they need to get rid of. So, we've done some studies. It looks like there's a projected 5% annual growth expected through 2020, and we see this industry kind of maxing out around $1.4 billion, and we're not even close to that as an industry right now.
Right. I remember as a kid, I grew up in Sayreville, New Jersey, Josh, and I remember my father, we had this big old station wagon, and we'd literally drive to a junkyard. It was almost like a landfill, we'd have everything in the back, and you'd pay the guy some, you give him a $10. I don't even know how much he gave him at the time, and he just threw everything out, in the junkyard. So it's interesting how things have changed today, and of course our society has become more environmentally conscious, So I've been a fan of this your business and this industry for a long time now. So I think it's fantastic. But what's been the most interesting thing that's happened to you since launching Junkluggers? Tough question for our guests.
Definitely. What do you mean exactly?
Well, is there anything that stands out? In your particular business, you must have, if I was sitting down having a cup of coffee with you, I bet you'd have some fantastic stories. Does anything stand out? You started this business at a pretty young age. We've had a lot of guests on the show, and I think you were probably one of the youngest as far as starting it at the time. So any stories that stand out?
Well, I think, what I've learned as we've grown the business, and at this point we're at about $3 million company or system-wide. We have about 60 employees system-wide. And we're just getting started, by the way.
That's
but a lot of the most interesting experiences, I would say, have come around just managing people and managing customer experiences. And I've certainly found early on that the better we're able to kind of treat people and support them on our team, especially, the better they're going to help grow the company and just make it an enjoyable place to come to work. So I don't know if I can think of one, and I'm sure as soon as we hang up I will, but one very interesting.
A dozen of them, yeah.
Yeah, but that was, I would say, one of the biggest learning curves in growing a business, especially starting at such a young age.
Yeah, I think it's very powerful what you just said, Josh, and I'm going to actually have, I teach for Catholic University, and I'm going to have my business students listen to that statement that you just said, because, it is very important, isn't it? Is of course finding the right people, to work with and things like that, and it's not always so easy, is it? So I
especially when you don't have any money.
Especially when you don't have any money, absolutely. And again, I just love the story of how you started with. Really totally grassroots, with sound like some basic flyers. Do you still have copies of those flyers, by the way, those very first flyers?
Yes, I do.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's historic, really. I think you should save those because someone's going to be asking for you one day, to take a look at those. So I think that's great. You're listening to Franchise Interviews, and we're speaking with the CEO of Junkluggers, Josh Cohen. And so let's get to franchising, Josh. What types of characteristics will you look for in your franchisees?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've spent a lot of time really thinking about that and discussing it internally, because one of the biggest things I learned and heard over and over when learning about the franchise industry is the better your franchisees and the better relationships you have with them, the more successful the franchise system is overall.
Yeah.
So, in thinking about that, the top thing that we look for in choosing our new franchisees is, are they a right culture fit for us and our company? Can we get along with them when we're talking to them, every day or every week when we're on the phone, and will we be able to see eye to eye? So number one is definitely culture, and we're not looking for necessarily people to be the same as us. I know nobody's the same.
Sure.
But people you feel comfortable going out and getting a beer with and having a candid conversation. Other than that, we're looking for people who've got fire in their belly, understand that as a franchise system, you still got to go out there and build brand awareness locally. And then beyond that, obviously, one of the things we put as last but not least necessarily is are they financially capable?
Sure, absolutely.
So we certainly don't want people, investing their life savings and then and then losing it because they just can't invest a little bit more if that's what it needs for this or that.
Of course, no, absolutely. I think that's well said. Once you decide, that you like them, Josh, and then they like you, I mean, how does it typically work when they want to go forward? How's the training work? I mean, do they come to New York? Is that where the training would take place?
It is. I mean, before we get to training, what we do, we have a pretty in-depth screening process. We really want to get to know the people that we're bringing on our team because they're 10-year contracts, so long-term relationships.
Sure, of course.
Once they get through that process, what we do is we have them come in for a 2-day orientation. We get them on the truck, make sure they know what they're getting to.
Right.
And sometimes we even do that beforehand. And then we'll assign a point person who's their dedicated franchisor rep. And they walk them through a 10-week due diligence process to help them get started and start to build the name out there. And then after this we do another 3 to 5 day training session. It's classroom and on the truck, going over a whole range of things: finance, marketing, operations, customer service. And then we let them loose to open. We'll send their dedicated rep out with them for the first week or so to make sure they're forming good habits and that they know what they're doing. And once we feel they're comfortable, it's more we support them from our home office here in the city.
I think it's fantastic time now. I think it's great how you have them participate in the franchise before they actually become a franchisee. We haven't had a lot of franchises on the show that has done that. And I think it is very clever that someone knows what a typical day is like as a Junkluggers franchisee. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. You know, if you could describe to our listeners, what is a typical day like as a franchisee, if there is such a thing anyway?
Yeah, and, you know, I agree with you because one thing I think we learned in our first year of franchising was when people don't have aligned expectations about what they're getting into, it creates a bad recipe. So we really want people to come in with their eyes wide open. A typical day for a franchisee, it ranges, you know, like any business owner, because they have a number of hats to fill. But early on, some of our franchisees choose to be on the truck to really understand from the ground up, you know, the intricacies of junk lugging.
Right.
So they're going to jump on a truck usually around 6:30 or 7 a.m. They'll check the truck to make sure there's no issues with it. They might go to a donation center or recycling center before the day starts if they have stuff still in the truck to drop it off and unload it. They'll call their customer ahead of time, let them know they're on their way, and then they'll go meet their customers and do some hauling. Some other really important things for our franchisees, and I'm sure for anybody listening, all franchise systems is, like I mentioned earlier, building that brand awareness. So we really encourage our franchisees to go out and network with the right people in the right industries who can help them build their brand and just to kind of build their name within the local community. So those are two of the top things.
I think it's great. You know, there must be, you know, I'm thinking as you're describing it, and there must be some diversity, too. I mean, I imagine, like, you know, if you're on the truck, of course, every day is probably a little different, you know. I mean, you probably have some variety as far as, like, what type of junk you're lugging away, you know, as you say. So I think that must, you know, keep things interesting as well. What advice would you give to our listeners, Josh? We call them, you know, in studying your background, you're certainly classified as an entrepreneur, and most of our listeners, they kind of know that they want to get into franchising. We call them franchipreneurs, but most of them don't even know where to begin their search. What advice would you give to them?
You know, like we said, really going in with their eyes wide open. Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions to really understand, because no business is perfect, and there's going to be challenges regardless of what business you're in. So really understanding what those challenges are and making sure that whatever franchise you're considering is open and honest about it.
Right.
Other than that, really understanding the type of money that the business requires to get up and running and get profitable. Usually you might have to, you know, talk to some other franchisees, which you should definitely do to find out how they're doing, but also when did they start to break even and to create a profit. I think those are two of the things, and then just really understand the industry and the type of growth potential.
Yeah, no, I think that's very powerful advice. So being that you're the founder of the company and the CEO, I can ask you the question, where do you see the company 3 to 5 years down the road, Josh?
You know, we're trying to become a national brand, and we're trying to expand first into every major metro market. So in this next year, we're looking to expand down the East Coast from Florida up to Maine, and beyond that, we're just looking to expand into very prime markets with the goal of having 50 franchises up and running within 3 to 5 years.
That's fantastic. What's the best way, Josh, for our listeners to get more information on becoming a franchisee? Any websites they should go to? Any numbers you'd like them to call?
Yep. Junkluggersfranchise.com is our website. And they could always call me directly. I'm handling franchise development at 212-268-5882.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again, Josh, for coming on the show. I really like your franchise, and I'd really like to invite you back next year as you continue to grow. I think this is fantastic.
Thanks, Marty. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Josh, and we'll be right back.
Franchise interviews from Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.